Hello. Can you hear me? Now. Thank you. So it's quite hard to have a talk after lunch. I know all of you are a bit tired, and honestly, I was expecting to be like 1/3 of the room, but I see a lot of you. And I really hope you enjoy what I'm gonna say. So, my name is Daniel, and what I wanna talk with you today is how we can make data fetching in React simpler. Because it's probably one of the most common tasks that we do because we don't have data in the front end and we need to bring it from somewhere. So, let's see how we can make this easier and simpler for us. So a few words about me. I'm an engineering manager at Fortech, a company from Cluj. I also help organize JavaScript meetups in Cluj with JS Heroes. And sometimes I tweet, but not that often. So before we start and see how we can make it easy, we should first see how we would fetch, for example, data now in React without any help. So a classic data fetching would be something like this. You have in a use effect, you do a call to the API, you get the products or what you need, you set them on the local state. And also, in this case here, we have a loading flag. So while the component is first loading, we put the flag on true, and it shows a nice spinner while the component is fetching the data. And then after we get the products, we show them. It's nothing too complicated. But believe me, we can make this a bit simpler. And even this example, I tried not to complicate it too much so the code fits in one slide. So we can simplify data fetching in React with React Query. So probably some of you already use it. So let's see the same example using React Query. From the React Query package, we take the useQuery function. The useQuery function receives 3 parameters. A query key that identifies the data fetched in React Query from this point on. The second one, it's a function that brings the products. So in this case, I created an API service, and you saw it in the other example as well. I use this one, and I do prepare all the API calls there. So if I want to change from fetch to Axios, I just change it in that place, and I don't need to go all over the application to do this. And also, useQuery has like a third parameter that's used for options. And in this case, we don't use it, but it's quite useful. Then from the useQuery, we take the data and rename it as products. And we also have the loading flag. So as you can see, it's a lot less code. So you don't have the use effect. You don't have all those set states. So you can use it directly from React Query. The setup is quite easy. It's nothing complicated. Of course, we need to install the React Query package. Then we need to import the query client provider. We wrap our application in it. We pass query client key. And you also, if you want, they have like really nice React Query developer tools. So you can use those ones as well. So this is like the whole setup besides the npm install. And then you can use React Query anywhere in your application. But what is React Query? React Query is a library that helps you simplify data fetching. React Query's goal is to have the server state fetching, caching, synchronizing, and update made easier. Because all the data, we usually have it, as I said, in the backend. So I mentioned server state. Let's see why is this important. On the server state usually is our persistent layer of the data. So that changes, it doesn't always change from your React application or from that client. It can be changed from different sizes, different places. So if your application doesn't fetch this state data often, it can become updated your front end. So in this case, we have the client side, which, as I mentioned, it can become easily outdated because the server state, the actual state of your application, the persistent layer, it's in the backend somewhere behind an API in the server state. So the client state, sometimes we fetch data and we have it in the client state in some global state management, like Redux, for example. So in this case, React Query's goal is to have the client state and the server state as close as possible. And by doing this, they help remove a lot of boilerplate code. So it makes fetching of the data much easier. So I think that's was the main point for me, the selling point for me was it helps with this one, and you're closer to the server state, which is the persistent layer. Now I'm gonna talk a few things. What I like about React Query is my personal things, what I like from them. So for example, here we have a data mutation. So in order to add data to your server state with React Query, you use a mutation. And what's really nice is that after we add a product, as you can see here in the example, we can simply tell React Query to invalidate any data that we have on product. So you edit a new product on the server state, and you don't have to add any logic like, hey, bring me the new fetch of data. You just tell them on success, invalidate the query key that we had in the previous example with products. So what React Query does, it automatically fetches the new data, and any component that uses that products, it will be automatically updated, which I think it's really nice. Also, they have really nice dev tools. They're simpler to use. You can see how stale is your data. You can do refetching, invalidation. The only thing to mention is that React Query works on both React and React Native, but the developer tools only work on the web version of it. They don't have the React Native version for them. Also, another few things that I like about React Query, and I want to emphasize this, is the less code. So in that example, it was quite simple. We could have even add error handling things like flag, like isError, which you can automatically take from React Query. So I think it helps a lot because you don't have a lot of logic. Another thing that I like is that it has automatic retries. So if you work with a flaky API, if it's yours or it's a third party, it automatically tries to fetch the data 3 times before it fails. So I think that's a good thing. Another thing that I like is in their documentation, they have exactly these words, aggressive and sane defaults. So React Query comes with good defaults, but they can take you by surprise. One example like this would be the retries. If you don't read this in their documentation, you don't know why it's doing this 3 retries. It has also dedupping. So if you have multiple components that try to fetch the same data, it just batches it in one call. So it doesn't do for all the components. It's widely used. I think now it has combined with the Tanner Snack and the old version, the version 3. I think it has over 1.5 million downloads per week. So when you have that many downloads, that it's a tool that's here and it's here to stay and it's maintained. So it's not something that's going to disappear in a month or 2. And as I mentioned, it has a lot of features out of the box. So for example, you go out in another tab and you have automatic refetching when you go back to the previous tab. So, like for example, if you have like an application where you sell products, you can go on at the page, and when you come back, you can see if that product, for example, it's still available because it fetches automatically the data again for you, and many more features. So that was it. Thank you very much. I hope you will give React Query a try. I think it's worth it. Gracias.